trying out this. I want to see how. I want to get a feedback from you as to the quality of the recording. Because I'm working on I'm using a Mac now.
Right, right. And now, well, here's the thing. Anyway, let's talk about that. It's actually going to be a whole free-form thing, and the cameras are rolling, and all this is just going to get uploaded. I kind of like this idea of you and I batting back and forth, calling on each other's shows, and just shop talking for a while. I really like that. Hang on 2 seconds.
No, I think it makes good sense.
Of course, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again, everybody, to the Meat and Potato Show, conservative talk and awesome rock. I am your host, Christopher Mader, and calling all the way from Massachusetts. She's way out there. It's Stephanie M. Davis. She's a Boston resident, principal at the Urban Data Group, a data analytics firm serving the needs of innovative organizations. She publishes Massachusetts Matters. I was just looking at that site, and we're going to talk about some of what she does on Mass Matters. And she hosts Patriot Games and The Daily Hash, syndicated on the Red Talk Radio. She's been on this show before. This is her second time coming on to the Meat and Potatoes. I was on her show, about a month or so ago? That was a great conversation.
Roughly.
Yeah. Stephanie, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me again. It's good to be with you.
It's always fantastic. Yeah, I want to talk about your Mass Matters. I was on that site. Let's see if I can go back and find it here. Where is it here? Massachusetts Matters. It was MassachusettsMatters.com, right? Massachusetts.
Yes.
Yeah, let's go here. Let's see, Massachusetts Matters. MassachusettsMatters.com. I didn't realize, and it's MassachusettsMatters.com, and digital magazine. This is your blog site, your magazine. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this?
Well, it's kind of my feeble attempt, which is not ended, but it's a feeble attempt to bring a comprehensive look at politics, culture, and how they intersect.
Interesting.
So it's kind of lifestyle, little innovation thrown in, a lot of politics,
Certainly.
etc.
Certainly. So here's the Patriot Games right here. Patriot Games Quo Vadis with. I love that title. Quo Vadis with Christopher Mader. That was a fun time. And there's the audio right there. Really, we went on for 54 minutes. 54 minutes and 18 seconds. That's something else. So, when did you start this? How long ago?
Now you see, I've been doing this in sundry forms, this online talk medium.
Right.
For now, it's probably better part of 6 years.
6 years, really?
So I've had multiple incarnations. I began, dare I say it, at Blog Talk Radio.
Sure. Yeah, and you and I said something about, Blog Talk it seems like it's going, that's going to be like kind of one of the first fallouts of this whole internet radio medium. There's so many out there, but yeah, you and I had mentioned a while ago that Blog Talk is kind of, they're in the sunset of their days. Would you agree with that? You would know more than I would about that.
Well, I would certainly. Well, I shouldn't say that, but my concern with them was because the work that you do is being pushed to their site, so they're getting the link love. Number one.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard for you to build a brand, although people have done it.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, the audio quality was poor.
Yeah. And there's always... Go ahead.
What's happened now, because of the virtues of technology, is that if you've got a broadband connection, a laptop, some headphones, and a microphone, you're good to go.
Yeah. Everything I'm running... Yeah, I've got you've seen some of the video stuff, and the reason why I had to use my secondary camera the last time you were on, because my cat ate the power cord to my good camera, so I got a new one. So I've got that camera up and running now, and that's what this interview will be uploaded. But
what did you do with the cat, if I may ask?
What did I do with it? I killed it. No,
No.
This happened a while ago. This happened just before your interview, and it was actually kind of tough to find the right kind of power cord from it. I actually ended up having it's a Vivitar camera that I'm using, and I had to actually call the 800 number, and I had to wait a couple of weeks because of FedEx or however they do things for a simple power cord. whatever. That problem has been solved, and I keep my cats away from the. I keep my cats away. In fact, that was it. It was on the interview that I did with you, the very first one that we filmed. I think in the video is that cat jumping up in my lap, and I actually threw the cat down the floor, and she she makes a lot of noise when she goes onto the floor. But
You know what they're looking for? Mine is the same as the warmth.
yeah. I'm running anyway. Back to the tech stuff. Yeah, I got a Vivitar camera, a couple of nice stands. My wife and I are now starting to use her iPad. That has great resolution. She just got a new.
You're using an iPad for your show?
Right now, I'm not, but I did what I filmed for the Libertarians a few weeks ago, and the video that I uploaded onto the Meat and Potatoes YouTube channel is from the iPad. The resolution was really great. It was really, really great. I have absolutely no complaints. Anyway, and I'm running.
Well, I'm running on a. What's happened to me is, you see, I've gone from the Windows to running a Mac, and that's a whole other universe, and it is so good.
You like it, huh?
Oh, it's tremendous.
Yeah. Some
It's
people.
worth the money. This is my first one. I will unequivocally say it's worth it.
It's worth the money. You like it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm going to just upgrade my laptop, basically get a better one, and yeah, I don't know. We're using the iPad. It's okay, but you got to go through iTunes and everything else to get it uploaded. It's a bit of a process. I'm sorry?
It's here. I'll show. I don't think people want to hear us do this tech talk, but I'll talk to you about that offline. It's so much better.
Yeah, sure. No,
and I'm
that's
speaking to someone who's had nothing but Windows machine. This is my first one, and it's a winner, as they say.
Yeah, you've got it. You did it. Anyway, let's get to some politics here. Trey Gowdy, it looks like he's going to head up the investigation into Benghazi and the IRS thing. I don't know, Stephanie. What do you think about it? Do you think this? Because, I mean, ISA was doing it for like a year and a half. It went nowhere. And that damn Cummings who was sitting next to him, remember that time when Cummings flipped out and it all went up on YouTube?
Now you know why.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
no, that was another scandal. So
yeah, go ahead. We find out that he's involved too. Go ahead. What do you think?
Well, I hope that what I've read is that the reason that these and other I shouldn't say inquisitions, but panels of inquiries of this type don't go anywhere is because the inquirers are not prepared to ask the proper questions. They have no strategy for doing it, and it goes poof. Now,
Right.
What I would hope is that Gowdy, who is an experienced prosecutor, would be allowed to do his job without interference, which is another thing I understand takes place behind the scenes. But he's a prosecutor. He knows how to, presumably, he knows how to ask questions and obtain information, and I would hope that he would be allowed to do that and have all the resources at his disposal. If for no other reason, we need to find out what happened.
Sure. Why? Who dropped the ball and why? And I'm talking about Benghazi right now. Who dropped the ball? Who didn't do anything? We find out, and there's so much information out there. We find out that, I mean, they knew exactly what was going on. I mean, Obama was informed. He went to bed. I think he had dinner. He was informed later on again. Again, no decision. And eventually, as the night went on, he just said, "No, screw it. I'm going to bed." It's like, really? Who does this?
Well, I would like to think that I would like to think a president of the United States would not do that. I would find that enormously disconcerting. If that's, I'm not disputing you. I'm saying it would not to be reassuring to me and to others to know that the commander-in-chief would take such a cavalier attitude. So I'm hoping that's not what happened.
Yeah, and with our bases, you look at any map about where our bases are positioned all around the world. From Aviano in Italy to Libya, I think it's a 4-hour flight at regular speed, like for a commercial jet. With our jets, they could probably make it there in about 2 hours. With the afterburners going supersonic, they could make it there. In under 2 hours. And this thing went on all night long. So there is no excuse for it.
Well, I don't think we just haven't been. I don't have a sense that we've been given this, this, the facts on this.
No, we're not. Now Lois Lerner, she's again, Cummings is involved. I think Levin, there's evidence pointing to Levin was trying to get information on Tea Party organizations because his seat is up for a re-election again, or it was in 2012. And so one of the things I've written in my blog is it's a section I call the personification of evil. I mean, these people are sitting down thinking about this. They're speaking with other people. They're forming a strategy. They're planning a strategy. And then they're implementing that strategy. They are doing this actively and knowingly. This is why I'm calling it the personification of evil. I mean, who would actively do this except for reasons of greed and malice? What do you think?
I just think Washington, D.C. is so far removed from the lives of normal people that it's dangerous for one thing.
It is dangerous.
You look at the wealth that is concentrated with the counties surrounding D.C. are among the wealthiest in the country. That's not conducive to responsive government. So I mean, they're not speaking to us. They're playing games with each other and they're firing at each other, but it's not relevant to the lives of most people.
Right, and I think you touched upon that when you and I were talking, on our first couple of interviews. That, yeah, I mentioned the thing about who believes this stuff, who really listens to what they have to say and says, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." And I think you did. You had said that they're talking to each other. And
which is not to say that there's not a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, the amalgamation of power and the abuse of power and using the IRS and other agencies of government to persecute one's enemies, which, by the way, was one of the things that got Richard Nixon into trouble.
Certainly.
It's very disconcerting because people aren't paying attention to this, I don't think.
Well, I think the liberals aren't paying attention to it. And everybody else seems to be. You and I are, and other like-minded conservatives are doing that. But I think
how many people is that? I mean, there was 300 million of us in this country.
Exactly.
You know, in other words, I'm glad that you and I, but could we fill up the TD North Garden with all of us who are paying attention to this?
Yeah, you make a really good point. I wonder if that would happen if we could. Yeah, fill it up, sell out a concert, or sell out a game, sell out a sports event. Enough.
What you're trying to do.
Now, as the progressives, as this thing gets into the media, into the light of the media, do you think you're going to see coverage like we did? I don't know. I'm not going to ask you how old you are, but I'm sure you remember the Watergate hearings. I remember when I was a kid, that thing was on the television all the time. And I remember during the Lewinsky scandal and all of that going on with Clinton, it wasn't on the television all the time, but you could tune into it. You could actually tune into it and follow what was going on in the hearings. Aside from C-SPAN and maybe something that gets up on YouTube, I mean, do you think this is going to get coverage?
Which this are we talking about?
Any of them, any of the Benghazi hearings, or even the IRS hearings.
Short of somebody being able to say Hillary or the president knew X, Y, and Z, and they were doing A, B, and C, or something, I don't know, something jaw-dropping. I just don't think it's on the radar screen.
I really don't think. I'm wondering that too. I don't think so. I have to concur with you. I don't think.
You know where people are going now? You know, a lot of these people, these millennials or whatever they are, they're going to the Daily Show.
Yeah, they are. They had that. Stephen Colbert. He was another. He's was the second. Technically you could call it the conservative version of the Jon Stewart show. Not really. But yeah, you make a good point. They get their information from there, and they're addicted to their phones. So whatever flashes across Twitter.
You know what, Chris?
Go ahead.
You know what? We're so. It used to be you that there were, what, 3 major channels, and that's what you had to choose from?
Right.
And you had a captive audience, a captive national audience. Well, now where the media are so diffuse that it's hard to galvanize the country around anything that isn't, say, sports related or reality, or what is that, American Idol or something of that nature.
Yeah, reality television too, right. Exactly.
So we're segmented.
Yeah, that's what it's turned into. Yeah, it has to be, there has to be some glitz and some glitter to it. It can't be, maybe that's why when you turn on CNN or Fox or, they've got these flashy studios and they're constantly changing the studios and there's constant, if you ever watch any news program now, they've got like 1 million flat screen televisions surrounding them, with graphics and everything else flying around trying to, it's an epileptic's nightmare.
It's gonna shock you. It sounds like remember the drama around the marathon bombing.
Sure.
That had the nation's interest for a while. That captivated, but it's more sensational. I remember Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill. Those hearings.
Yeah, I remember those hearings too. That was riveting.
Jaw-dropping.
It was jaw-dropping and riveting. I remember that. And here's the thing, but I've got to tell you this. Now when I watch something like that, I no longer believe a goddamn thing that anybody's saying. Even if I'm for, let's take the Trey Gowdy Benghazi thing. Let's say Trey Gowdy will be sitting there asking questions. I'm not going to believe a word that Trey Gowdy says until it gets sifted through and maybe a couple of weeks go by. Then I'll look at it, and I'll tell you why I feel that way. Let's go back to what you just said about Anita Hill and the Clarence Thomas thing. At the time, the way it was being produced, Clarence Thomas, it's like, oh my God, who the hell is this Clarence Thomas guy? Look at all the things that he did. Wow, look at that guy. We're going to put him on the Supreme Court? What, are you crazy? Come to find out down the road, yeah, I mean, he did get, nominated, and he sits on the court now. But down the road, we find out that Anita Hill, it was a plant. It was all created. None of it was really, how much of it was true, I don't know, maybe none of it. But it was purposely planted, and she was inserted at the 0 hour of the confirmation hearings. Go on.
She was the cat's paw.
Yeah, that was it. Unbelievable. So this is why, as this thing goes on, I'm not going to believe anything from anybody until it's all over and it's all been sifted out. Again, let's go back to look at what ISA, when that thing when Cummings flipped out.
Yeah.
Part of me is like, well, you know what, ISA, you probably should have let him talk. Just shut the guy up, let him have his word. Well, here we are, weeks or a couple of months later, we find out that Cummings is one of the guys that's being implicated. This is why I'm not going to believe any of it until it's all over.
But think about that, and I don't disagree with you. I don't believe much of anything until I have the opportunity to sift through it and come to my own conclusions. But think about how corrosive, and we're kind of plugged in people. There are people who don't do any of this. Think about how difficult it is to galvanize the nation's attention around any critical issue of any kind with this level of cynicism and indifference.
Well, I think it's also, go ahead. I think it's also a level of...
Don't you think it's dangerous?
Yeah, I think it's also a level of public ignorance. And I mean ignorance in the standpoint of that people don't follow politics. They don't educate themselves about the history of their country. And I mean, look at our educational system now. We're not teaching our kids any critical thinking anymore. So as time goes on, it's just going to get worse. You can't have the type of conversation you and I are having with the guy at the checkout counter in the grocery store. My friend and I are working on the gasoline initiative, the automatic gas tax. We're out collecting signatures. We're running into a couple of different types of people. Obviously, there are people that are like, no, I don't want to sign that, and they walk off. Other people have even said to us, they're like, well, I don't even know what that is, or I'm not even registered to vote. Do you have to be registered to vote? Yes, you have to be. Oh, I'm not registered. Well, you can get registered. No, I don't want to bother. These people don't care. They really don't care. Even though these things are going on around them and it personally affects them, they don't care. They don't want to care. The other people that we run into are people who do care. Yes, I'm registered to vote. I work in such and such polling station. Or yes, I voted last year. And they're the ones that are signing the petitions. And let's see, we've been doing it, what, a couple of days now? I think we have just under 90 signatures. But we run into hundreds and hundreds of people, and we keep, would you like to sign the petition? Would you like to? All day long we do this. We only have just under 100 signatures so far. So, yeah, people don't. Go ahead.
No, I get where you're going, and it's kind of disconcerting.
And then the legislators in the gasoline initiative. I was talking to Ralph Belmore from the Marlboro Tea Party when we went down to the gun rally in Connecticut. Ralph Belmore was on the bus, and he was telling us that even though we already had 125,000 signatures, already had them certified, everything was all set and ready to go. Whoever was in charge up there in Beacon Hill said, I think it was to Marty Lamb and to Desiree, who are spearheading the thing. They said, well, you know what, we don't think that's enough. Why don't you go out and get another 25,000? And then, in other words, they changed the rules in the middle of the game. Once they saw that we had the signatures and we were going to push this, they threw a monkey wrench into the thing. And I told Ralph Belmore.
How do you do? You can't do that.
Well, that's what they did. That's why we're out getting more signatures. I did this last year. I had hundreds and hundreds of signatures. Everybody did.
Right.
We did this all last year. I think we had to turn it in by November something. We were done. We were finished. It was all set. I just told you the story. A few weeks ago when we went to the Connecticut rally, Ralph Belmore from the head of the Marlboro Tea Party, he's up there talking to us on the bus as we're driving down there. I was like, are you serious? He's like, oh yeah. I was like, are you kidding me? They changed the rules. He's like, that right in the middle of the game. And I told him, I said, you mark my words, Ralph. We'll go get these signatures. Not only will we get 25,000, we'll probably get another 100,000 because we're that crazy, us Tea Partiers. We'll bring those things up to Beacon Hill. They'll change the rules again on us. You mark my words. He looked at me and says, you're probably right. I said, you mark my words. They'll do that. Unbelievable.
Well, the only thing I can think of, though, is it might be, because I don't know the nuances, but it might be in the process, but there's something to do with the ballot. You know, here's the person I would ask, Barbara Anderson. That's who I would ask.
Barbara Anderson.
And she could explain it to you. I don't think. I know we live in Massachusetts. I'm not naive, but you can't just change things in the middle of. They do that, but I don't think you can do that with the. And this is an initiative petition process. I would go to her and I would ask her. She's on Facebook.
Right. I'm gonna do that. Yes, tax initiative.
Because she knows this. She's been down this road many, many, many times, and she knows it cold.
Unbelievable. Thank you for that name. I did not know that. I did not know that she was. I've heard her name before. I've probably even run into her at Tea Party. I'm sorry?
Proposition 2.5.
Yep, Prop 2.5. That's what she worked on. There we go.
She is the driving force behind that. So when it comes to initiative, and she's very accessible, initiative petition issues, I would go to her.
Excellent.
And she's head of Citizens for Limited Taxation, by the way. And she's been fighting a good fight for a long time. And she can explain it. But I don't think it's just made up ad hoc. I think there's some procedure, and I don't understand it, but she will.
Excellent. So I am. Go ahead. I am heading up I started an event, August 30th. I sent you an invite. I think you got it. August 30th. I'm calling it a candidate symposium. I'm getting a lot of feedback, a lot of positive feedback. Brad Wyatt is going to lend out the Liberty Clubhouse on the 4th floor.
Again, thanks to Brad. He's always available.
He is. He's really good. He's not only doing that for the 30th. He's let me go there on Sunday. Sometimes I have some of the local candidates. I'll sit in the room. We'll use the room. We'll film in there. It's just got nice ambience, nice sound, nice everything else. So he's really, really good on that. And I threw this idea across his desk a little over a week ago. Initially, he says, it sounds like a good idea, he says, but I don't think you're going to get anybody to go. Well, interestingly enough, I am getting some feedback. I'm getting some business leaders in. Some of the candidates are responding. So far, I've got, I started it early. I've only got about 6 people who have hit it up. So I keep going through the cycle of reposting, and reinviting just to get some people. But what I want to ask you is, the purpose behind doing this is I want to get some civility and some problem solving back into the election. I even post on the event page, this is not a debate. I want all the candidates and business people to sit around. We're going to have some of the audience people ask questions or submit questions via the Facebook page. And we're going to ask the questions, and we're going to moderate the event. And the idea is to get these people to problem solve, like you would do at a meeting. Let's say you're going to have a meeting, and you're going to sit around. We've got this thing going on. Let's brainstorm this idea and get it onto the factory floor for production. This is what I want to do with the candidates.
Brainstorm.
What do you think about that? And I don't know what you're doing on August 30th. I send you an invite. I'd love to have you there. I'd love to have you there, and not only have you there, but bring. I don't know how mobile your studio is. Mine's designed to be mobile, and because I would love to have more media people there doing it. And what do you think about that?
I can't even think 24 hours ahead, and you've already left 4 months into. Or 3 months. Good night.
Yeah.
Less than 4 months away.
You said it.
I could be. Yeah, I guess who knows? Maybe I'll become a member of the space station up there or something. But no, I haven't. If I'm here, I'm happy to do it.
Sure. Great. Excellent. That would be great.
We need these kinds of discussions. You want to have some high-level discussions.
Yeah.
About things that are important.
A lot of the candidates that I have interviewed, they're very well educated. They're on top of what is going on. They're not, and the ones that I've interviewed, I think it's partly because I'm interviewing primarily Tea Party candidates. I mean, I've been banging on Mark Fisher's door. I've been banging on Charlie Baker's door. They're never going to answer. They're never going to respond. And I'm ready to go over and see if I can talk to some of the Democrats who are running for governor. There's a couple of socialists and a progressive that's running. I'd like to get them on the phone there and get them on the phone. But the people that I talk to are very well spoken, very well educated, and they don't play partisan politics. They're looking to solve problems. They're not looking to play the same game that you see every election cycle, and then once they're elected, they get up into office, and then it's just more game playing. They're there to solve the problems. That's why I want to do this forum. That's why I want to do it.
Well, I think a lot of the reticence that you encounter is because these politicians are wary of getting caught in traps. Speaking about Donald Sterling online, and his conversations being recorded, and Mitt Romney, people using phones and cameras and this and that to try to play gotcha games with politicians. So if they don't do it, then they don't have to worry about it.
And here's why. This brings us back to.
I think that's what TMZ and all of these websites they don't want to have their candidacies blown up, so they're just.
Yeah, the Romney thing with the 47%. When Romney said that about the 47%, and again, getting back to what I said is, I'm not going to believe anything until time goes by, because we end up proving later on down the road that Romney was correct about that. He was.
Yes, well, I knew he was right about it, but you just have to be careful how it comes out, because it will be used against you.
Certainly, and you're right about.
Particularly him.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We see it all the time. I mean, liberals get away with saying some of the most outrageous things. They get away with saying outwardly racist things, but somebody like Mitt Romney, who implies something, I mean, he's trying to say it in a way that isn't racist or hurtful, yet he's pilloried for it. I mean, there's a thing on my YouTube page. I did this whole litany of things that liberals have said. It's on my Facebook page also. Just the stuff that comes out of these people's mouths is just unbelievable, and they all get a free pass. It's unbelievable. Not us, though. Not us. I have to be careful. I was there's this thing that's been going around. It seems to have died off. It's fallen off the radar. The knockout game that's been going around in some of the inner cities. And I've made some statements and some comments about that and what I think about that. And I was talking with a candidate out in Oregon, Mark Callahan, and he's coming back on the show, but for a while he asked to distance himself from me because somebody had complained about my position on that, the knockout game, and they had gotten on Mark Callahan's case because he had come on to the show. And that's when I formed that whole, the meat and potatoes has a no apologies policy. And we don't apologize for the things we say on this show. This is my show, and I'll do whatever the hell I want on this show. You don't like the show, change the channel. And one of the things I was angry about was that don't go after somebody who's been a guest on my show. That guest who's on my show, we're there to talk about a specific situation, a specific subject. We're talking about his candidacy and his campaign. What I do elsewhere, either on the page with another guest, that has something else to do with something else. You don't juxtapose the two of them together because they're completely unrelated. It would be like if something you and I said in our interviews, Stephanie Davis, she was on that Meat and Potato show, and Christopher Mader from Meat and Potatoes 6 months later said this. Now, how do you feel about that, Stephanie Davis? It'd be like what Chris and I talk about is what Chris and I talk about. What Chris is talking about 6 months down the road with somebody else, that's an entirely different ball of wax. But then, you're right, this seems to be the paradigm now. You say something out of turn, boom, you're hit. You're labeled.
Well, it's so anti-American, and when I say that, I mean in the concept of the spirit of the First Amendment, where we have the right to speak freely so that we can have these types of discussions and get to some type of understanding, to be hoped, some answers. But if you're snuffing out people's ability to say anything, it just it puts a wet blanket on honest discourse.
Makes people frightened too.
Yeah, well, yes, and don't think that's not intentional in some quarters.
So what have you run into? What about you? Has anybody gotten on your case about something you said, or maybe a show that you did, or a guest you had on? What?
Not really. Nothing comes to mind because I've been kind of bland lately.
Come on, lady. Come on, yeah.
No, I have. I mean, it's nothing, it's nothing, of course, today, anything you say today can be used against you if you're not careful. But I haven't really said anything. I've been in non-controversial mode, which is not to say that I'm not particularly diplomatic, and I can be incendiary, but I haven't really sought out to be incendiary.
And that's my thing too.
I can't think of anything I've said. I don't know.
I don't look to be incendiary, and I've definitely calmed down a lot over the years as I've gone on. I remember when I was on WCUW, I really used to push the envelope. I used to push the envelope, and I'll tell you why. Because you watch network television.
No.
And no, I'm saying, let's take. Oh, wise ass.
No.
Let's say, I know, really. Neither do I. Actually, we don't. Our cable, we got rid of TV. We just if we want to watch something, we watch movies or Hulu or Netflix or we go on YouTube. I got a smart TV.
You're not missing anything.
Yeah, I'm not. I've realized that I'm not missing anything, and I do everything off the internet and online. So you're right. I'm not missing anything. I used to be a little bit on the edge because you'd see stuff on network television that people would make. Not racist statements, but they would make race jokes. I mean, you see it all the time on Saturday Night Live. You see it all the time on the late night talk shows. The two that I think of are the Wayans brothers in that show In Living Color that they used to have back in the 90s. Those guys, oh my God, they used to push the envelope. So my attitude was, well, if these guys can do it, it's like, if I turn it into comedy too, I can do it. 90% of the people enjoyed the comedy. They enjoyed the discourse. I was always doing the interviews. It would always be that one person. That one person who would tune in at 2:45 in the morning and hear me say, "Oh, I don't even remember, for crying out loud. It was so long ago." And they would quite literally say, "I tuned in at 2:47 a.m. in the morning and I heard Mr. Mader say this, that, the other thing. I'm offended." And they'd send in an email to the station, and that's it. That it would just every week I would go in. It got to the point where I wouldn't go into the studio and start pulling records and getting my show ready. I'd go into the studio and go sit down at the manager's desk because I knew I was going to get yelled at.
Well, yeah, but that, again, yeah, I don't know. If everybody who's offended gets to be have a seat at the table, then none of us are going to be able to say anything, because everybody can be offended by something that somebody says somewhere.
That's a mental condition too. I mean, if you're like that, well, I'm offended. Why would somebody say that? That's terrible. I'm going to write an angry letter. You know, you've got some problems. Yeah, I mean, your life is, there's something wrong with your life. You know, when I think about what you go through in life and the things people have said to me, and it's like you gotta have a thick skin. You gotta let it roll off.
You sure do.
You sure do.
But I feel so. I feel kind of. I wonder what kind of management you had.
For me, for my show here, it's just me. But when I was at WCUW, and the guy was nice. They were nice people, and I would just get yelled at and bitched at. Don't do this, don't do that. You know, you might have to make an apology on air, and I flat out would say I'm never apologizing for anything I say on the air. You know, I don't.
Well, you have to decide.
Yeah.
What's your purpose? Are you trying to be? It's like my friend and I have this conversation. He watches Bill Maher. He's not a sympathizer, but he watches it, and he says Bill Maher has Ann Coulter on his program. They're friends, and she regularly appears on his program. And he said, and they're polar opposites. I'm sure you know that politically.
Yeah.
But he says you've got to understand that both of those people are entertainers, and they deliberately say provocative things because they sell books and make money doing it.
Yeah, right.
So you have to decide what you want to be, how you want to approach this. Do you want to be in that genre, or do you want to do something different? I think you want to do something different.
Yeah.
I think that's why you're doing your candidates forums. You want to get beyond it.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Intellectual discussions.
They're better. They're cathartic is what they are, actually. They really are. When I think about all of the people that I've interviewed over the years, from when I was at WCW into now, and I said this, I think, to Colonel Reed Reeser. He's in Texas, and he's running out in Texas, and he's become a good online friend of mine. I said to him, it's the equivalent of a college education. I mean, years ago, I would never have thought of myself going down this road, but yet here I am,
Exactly.
6 years later. It's the equivalent of a college education. Everything I have,
You're educated.
I'm sorry?
You have educated yourself. Don't you feel like you're gaining knowledge when you do the research for these?
Oh, of course I do. Of course I do. And I've always been a big reader. I got that from my mother. My mother was like a book-a-day person. She was unbelievable. But I morphed from just reading books, science fiction, fiction stories, stories, like books, to now I'm reading biographies. I'm reading history. And when I do research for a show, I really didn't do any research for our show because you and I, this is a free-form thing. But when I have a candidate or a guest on and there's a specific subject coming up, I research that candidate. I research that guest. I formulate an outline, what we're going to talk about.
Sure.
I got a guy coming up on the 24th. His name is Brian Keller. He wrote the book Dictator in Chief. I'm trying to get some excerpts so I can, because I haven't got the book, but when I interview an author, I try to get the book, and then I plow
Yeah.
through the book so that when I have that person on, I know what I'm talking about. We talk about the book. I did it with.
Preparation.
Well, you have to, because so that well, you don't want to sound like an idiot when you're on the microphone. You know,
Exactly.
talking to these people. You know, I had James Boudreau. He wrote a book. Um, what the hell was it? American Prosperity. Why the American economy may never recover. I spoke to and he's coming back too. James is coming back, and Colonel get this, not Colonel, Commander Kirk Lippold from the USS Cole is coming back on the show later on in June. He and I are going to work out some dates. He was somebody to talk to, and I ended up reading. I ended up doing a ton of research on the USS Cole and the incident in October, and
Oh,
yeah, unbelievable education that I've received just from all of this, from just talking to all these people. It's been cathartic. It really has. I am not the same person now I was in 2008. Not at all. Not at all. So what do you got?
for the better. For the better.
Sure, sure. What do you got? What do you want to throw at me?
Oh, well, it seems to me that in all the toing and froing we do about politics, or let me speak about myself,
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
have been somewhat deficient or neglectful about America's role overseas and abroad. And I think in that regard, I'm not unlike my fellow Americans, many of whom, historically, I'm sure you know this, Americans have been traditionally somewhat isolationist by virtue of geography. Would you agree with that? We don't have to be
I would.
concerned about.
Sure, I would. Yeah, that's one of the great things about where we are positioned on the planet Earth.
Geography is destiny, someone said, or someone.
Sure.
But anyway, I'm a subscriber. I get the Christian Science Monitor weekly magazine, and I like to look at they'll pick out 6 or 8 notable quotables by public figures, and I turn to it the first week of May, and I'd like to read something to you
Go
that
ahead,
struck me
Yeah.
as profound, and I think it deserves consideration.
Go for
I'm
it.
quoting. This radical Islam is not abating. It is destabilizing communities and even nations. And in the face of this threat, we seem curiously reluctant to acknowledge it and powerless to counter it effectively, close quote. And would you like to take a guess? You probably know who said it.
No, I have no idea. It's a wonderful quote, though. Go on.
Former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, in a keynote address on the Middle East delivered at Bloomberg headquarters in London, April 23rd. He went on to say in the same speech, quote, "What is absolutely necessary is that we first liberate ourselves from our own attitudes. We have to take sides," close quote. And I am prepared for the show. That's such a clear assessment by someone who's certainly not a hothead. I don't consider Tony Blair a hothead.
No.
But it's a very clear call to arms, metaphorical arms, about what we need to be doing to deal with this problem, because it's not going away.
No, I completely agree with everything that you just on the air. That's on the air. That's real.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift the text of the speech. I read it today in preparation for my appearance with you, and I strongly urge, I know we're all busy, but if you take half an hour and read it, it is worth the consideration, because he goes on to outline the problem and what he thinks are some solutions that can go toward addressing this issue, because it simply isn't going to go away because we don't want to talk about it. This is dangerous stuff.
And it's certainly not going to go away if we placate it. And
No.
again, it's the equivalent of a college education. If this was 5 or 6 years ago and you asked me about Islam, I might as well just pick my nose, because I would have no idea. Now I know so much about it. because it's front and center in the news. I have in my YouTube channel on one of my playlists. There's a piece that's called "What Islam Is Not," and it's written by it's narrated, I mean, by a Middle Eastern woman who is Christian, who converted from Islam to Christianity, and she goes on to describe what Islam is not. She talks about the percentage. When you have like a 2% Muslim population in your country, there's a certain amount of demands that they make. And then she goes on and she keeps adding the number. When you get up to 5%, this is what you can expect to happen. When you get up to 10%, you can expect this, that, and it's on and on and on until she gets to the point where it's like, and when you're at 60%, you can expect there to be violence in the streets, you can expect there to be civil war, and when it gets to be 75%, you can expect to see beheadings, churches being burned, people being, the whole system just going to hell in a handbasket. And as I'm watching this and considering it to put up on one of my playlists, I thought of what goes on in Oslo. Oslo supposedly is the rape capital of Europe, and 90% of every single rape that occurs in the city of Oslo is committed by Muslim men against white women. 90% of all rapes. The other 10% are, and please don't take this the wrong way, are regular rapes. Just women getting raped by whoever, the husbands or boyfriends or the so-called stranger in an alleyway. But 90% are caused by Muslim men. Now, if this...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So, if this isn't a wake-up call, if we don't start seeing things as they really are, and this is what I said when I made my meat and potatoes has a no apologies policy. We have to see things as they really are. And when you read that about what Tony Blair said, that's basically saying the same thing that I've been saying. He's telling us you've got to see it for what it is. And you can't be afraid anymore to look at it and say, no, this is what it is. And I'm going to use certain words that you might find offensive or other people might find offensive. I don't care. Because what I am looking at and what is right in front of me is heinous. And I will use heinous words to describe it and describe the people doing it. Because you must see it for what it really is. Go ahead, Stefan. Go ahead.
Well, it should be noted throughout the speech he was clear he made it clear that he was not castigating all of Islam. He makes a very distinction between the fanatics and the pluralists.
Sure.
He says that over and over again. This is not all of Islam, and I do think it's important to keep that clear.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't get a handle on these fanatic types, it's going to get harder and harder for all of us.
And again, the placating in Islam, one of the things I've learned about Islam is in Islam, they always posit from strength. In Islam, if you negotiate, if you try to coexist, if you try to placate, if you try to, okay, well, we're gonna let them do this because they're being offended by our attitude, so we've got to kind of back away a little bit and look at how we are. They see that as weakness because they are, and again, it's not all Muslims, and it's not Arabs in general. I'm talking about Islam. I'm talking about the religion of Islam. Is that they posit through strength. They push their agenda through strength. And if you step back and say, okay, I'll give you a little bit of room, they look at you as weak. Stand up, and whereas if you stand up and you put yourself actually give their face, they'll actually give you a little bit of respect. It's like, wait a minute, this guy's pushing back. This guy's pushing back. We see that in a respectful here and there. But what we're doing here in the United States by even talking about the possibility of adopting Sharia law, same thing like they're doing in Europe, that's placating. And they see that as a weakness. And that's just one of the things that I've discovered over the years in being exposed to Islam the way we are 24/7 now in the news cycle.
Well, in the speech, he particularly calls out Western commentators, certain commentators and analysts who have a tendency overlook anything untoward involving Islam as a specific and isolated case, and he's suggesting that we need to start connecting the dots.
Exactly, exactly. The other thing too, and I'm writing about this in my current expose on the blog, is that I happen to feel that the isolated incidences, the isolated incidences, those, well, this is not indicative of the large majority. Those isolated incidences are the good people, are the people who are practicing Islam quietly. They're living in America. They love to be Americans. They're citizens. They just want to practice Islam because we live in a religiously free country. Those are the isolated incidences. It's kind of like you see a lot of the police brutality that's going on out there. At one point in time, you could say, well, that's an isolated incident. A cop getting out of control, beating somebody up. Okay, that's an isolated incident. Now it's flipped on its head. The isolated incident is the good cop. The isolated incident is the cop that helps somebody, that tries to resolve a dispute or a problem, not arresting anybody. Today, what you see is overreaction. You see Islam all over the place, in the news and in America, in Europe, always violent, always angry. I mean, just look at the Middle East, for crying out loud. I mean, that whole place is just nothing but one big giant anger fest. And the isolated...
You can't ignore it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. You can't ignore it, and you've got to see it for what it is and call it out for what it is. Send me that. Send that to me in email.
I will.
Yeah.
It's really worth. It's actually to me. Now I have to read. There was a dissenting point of view from a.
Go ahead. Read that.
But I think everybody should read that speech because it's a clarion call that you don't hear it.
No, you don't. You don't.
And you know something?
Go ahead.
You know something else, Chris? You know what else?
Go ahead.
Now I'll be controversial.
Go
you know
ahead.
where the real war on women is being waged?
I'm going to say the Democrats.
Well, it's being
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, Islam. Oh God, yeah.
It's being waged in places like Africa, in the Middle East.
Sure.
And it's being waged on females and girls by, again, these Islamic fanatics.
Right. They're pedophiles. I'm sorry, America. They're pedophiles. The entire culture, and again, not all Arabs, please. We're talking Islam. Pedophilia is part of Islam. Muhammad himself was a pedophile. He married a 9-year-old girl, for crying out loud.
Do you know who Ayan Hirsi Ali is?
Go ahead.
She, and I just learned about this, but she is a Sudanese national who was subjected to a clitorectomy at the age of 9.
Yeah, that's the other. Oh yeah, that practice.
And then she, which is barbaric, by the way, but she subsequently escaped and found herself in the Netherlands. And give me his name again, was murdered.
Who was?
Van Gogh. Was it Van Gogh? The outspoken, the fellow in the Netherlands who was very outspoken.
I know who you're talking. You're right. I forget the name too, but yeah, I know. Yeah, go on.
Van Gogh, I think his name, and he was murdered because he had begun to call attention again to this danger of Islamic fanaticism, and he was brutally murdered and stabbed. And when they found him with a dagger or a knife in his chest, there was a note pinned to the knife. This is barbaric, but I don't really like talking about this. But anyway, it had Ms. Ali's name on it saying, "You're next." So basically, she had to flee. She's under threat of murdered. And it turns out that people in the Netherlands didn't want her around either because she's become outspoken against Islam because of, I guess, for obvious reasons. But she eventually found herself in this country. Mm-hmm. She is now a fellow at the Kennedy School. Of course, that may have changed. But but she was supposed to have received an honorary degree from Brandeis University here in the Boston area, and that invitation was revoked last month because of her outspoken stand on the extremism in Islam.
Yeah.
So
the only two countries I see that are doing anything proactive is Russia and China. I mean, Putin doesn't put up with that. Look at what he did in Chechnya, and we can argue all day long about, well, maybe it was a little overkill. But I got news for you, folks. You don't hear anything about Chechen Islamics anymore. You really, really don't. The Chinese, the Uyghurs, or some Muslim group. Yeah, Uyghurs, right? Uyghurs. They will not put up with that. They will not put up with any of that whatsoever, both in Russia and in China. The United States got tough after 9/11, and then the whole policy shifted. It started turning into this. We got to be friendly. We got to put on a friendly face. And once we started doing that, and that's when I first heard about that, about Islam, about when you placate and you negotiate, they see it as weakness. Which is why after we pull out this year in Afghanistan, it's going to be a bloodbath. The Taliban are going to come back. They're just going to come back. We're going to see this again.
I wanted to put that on the table as part of a larger point that I saw the recent cover of The Economist asks, "What will America fight for?" And certainly, I've seen polling in the Wall Street Journal that suggests that Americans want to withdraw from their place of leadership on the world stage, and to me, apathy is not an option. You can't survive. You can't enjoy the standard of living and the freedoms that we enjoy by taking that attitude, I guess. So I'm just saying I need to wake up, and I think my fellow Americans need to shrug off this apathy, this desire. So it is cultural. I don't know what it is about this country, but for some reason we just want to be left alone, and we don't want to think about anything outside of these shores. It's just not viable.
I am of the mind that well, we certainly can't afford this anymore. That's for sure. We certainly can't afford to having our bases all over the world. Now, having said that, closing down bases around the world, yeah, some, maybe most of them. I mean, we've got to protect our borders here. We've got illegals running rampant across the Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and California deserts. It's unbelievable. And not all of them are Mexicans, folks. A lot of them are Islamic extremists, Chinese radicals. It's a fact. It's a fact. It's not something I'm throwing out there. I've done my research on this. But yeah, we can't afford this anymore. Unfortunately, it's like we've dug our own hole here. It's like we've got all our troops all over the world. Yet if we pull back, you just know that some country somewhere is going to pull some BS. They're just going to do that, and then we're going to have to go back. It's like a rock and a hard place we're stuck in. I don't know what to do, to be honest with you.
Well, sometime you and I'm curious to know what you mean by troops all over the world. But anyway, that said, I think the best policy or the best concept or the best strategy to try to implement is speak softly and carry a big stick.
Sure. Yeah.
If you don't want bloodshed, then you better be prepared to let the world know that they better not fool around with you.
Very good. Stephanie, thanks for calling into the show. I've actually got my buddy Wayne's here. We got to head down and get some more of them damn signatures. And I don't know.
Well, you're doing the Lord's work.
We all are. We're all trying here. And I look forward to talking to you again. I'll probably be on your show next. So send me that stuff. Hit me up about when you want me on the show, and we'll get all that going. And yes, please look into that event that I'm working on. Please try to attend. And yeah, if you can remove or cast or film or record it, please, you're more than welcome to come and do that. It's right there on the event. Everyone's invited to come and film and record. Ladies and gentlemen,
Well, we'll
Stephanie
have to
Davis.
publicize this more.
Sure. Oh yeah, we'll talk again, but don't worry about that. Okay. All right. Hang on. I'm gonna stop the camera, stop the rolling here, and then you and I can talk. Hang on. 2 seconds. Stephanie Davis.
I will.
Thank you.
Are you there?
Hang on. 2 seconds.
Oh.
Hang on. I'm here. Hang on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's good. Good stuff.